Two Montana lawmakers walk away after a deadly train crash this morning.
UM's new president wants the campus community to simplify the way it works.
And for one Montana ski family, the Special Olympics is a celebration of friends.
Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
I'm Dennis Bray.
And I'm Jill Valley. University of Montana President Seth Bodner says he's not expecting the campus to continue the same amount of programs and complexity now that more than 80 people have left the school with those voluntary buyouts.
Instead, he's encouraging the entire UM faculty, administrators, and staff to simplify and find more efficient ways of filling the university's core mission. Bodner's call to simplify comes as he closes out his first month running UM, with presentations this week to all parties on campus, kickstarting what he hopes is an effort to position the school for the future. One challenge is to regroup the University Planning Committee, reviewing the past 2 years of work by other panels and coming up with a strategic plan by May. Another is looking at what Bodner calls project simplification, making campus operations easier and better, and ways to simplify the way of work.
It's imperative for us not to simply say, we need to do the same work with fewer people and better results. So we're not going to do that. We're going to take a very deliberative and intentional process to assess how we do work at this university to support that core mission and make sure that we're as integrated and as effective as possible.
The dollars also dictate change. UM lost nearly 4,000 full-time equivalent students and $17 million a year in tuition revenue in the last 6 years. Bodner believes more targeted marketing and retention of students will help fill that hole. But he admits the current situation isn't sustainable over the long run, and he's challenging the UM community to build a campus where all parts are working together instead of competing for money.
This is not a world where you can just have some basic skills-based education, right? It's a world that you need STEM, and we have terrific STEM offerings here at the university, but you need more, right? And our power is in the and, right? We have great sciences and great arts and humanities and professional skills, and it's that combination that students need to succeed in a world where they're not just going to have one job, they're probably going to have 10 jobs.
Bodner believes it's a defining moment for UM at a time when the perceived value of higher education is slipping, something he calls frightening.
I think we've seen over the past few years perceptions of the value of higher education and its importance diminish. And I think that's really dangerous.
Bodner tells me he hopes to boost student retention at UM by 10% over the next 2 years, a goal he says could have a positive $4 million impact on UM's budget.
Some homeowners in the South Hills of Missoula in the dark this morning after a truck pulled down some power lines. It was a delivery truck that caused this incident off Garrett Street at 6:30 this morning. The truck made a turn off Garrett, causing its trailer to catch the power line, shearing two poles that then landed on two nearby homes. Around 350 customers were without power, including Cold Springs Elementary. Power was restored to the school around 9 o'clock, but some people in the area were still without power until late this afternoon. The owner of a home that took the brunt of the hit was on his way to work when he found out what happened.
Well, I was driving to work this morning at about 6:30. I was about halfway down the hill and I saw this delivery truck coming up the hill. I get down to Briggs Street and my wife calls and tells me I need to get home right away. There's been a big crash, the power went out, so I turn around, come back, and look at my house. The power pole has gone through the garage door.
The incident caused an estimated $20,000 in property damage. Turning now to weather, we saw a bit of a lull, but conditions are expecting to get a little active heading into the weekend. Let's check in now with meteorologist Russ Thomas, who's got the latest for us. Russ.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and take a look. We've got with our radar and satellite right now. What we're seeing is sky starting to clear out a little bit across western Montana. Those areas where that is happening, those numbers are dropping temperature-wise. And I do think it is going to be a pretty chilly night for all of western Montana by the time it is said and done. 20 right now in Sea Lake, 23 Phillipsburg. We're down to 19 in Kalispell, one of those areas that has cleared out over the last couple hours. 28 degrees Missoula, 25 St. Regis, 27 degrees in Thompson Falls. Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll have a look at your forecast for the next 7 days.
No damage done tonight, but officials say it will take a few days for the smoke to clear after a bouncy castle caught fire in the inflatable play area at the Missoula Indoor Soccer Arena tonight. City fire officials say it was an overheated extension cord that created sparks, which caused some flames to spread to one of those bouncy castles nearby. Missoula City Fire responded just after 6:30 tonight. The building was immediately evacuated while fire crews dealt with the fire and got it out within minutes. No injuries reported.
Two of Montana's congressmen are uninjured in a train crash that killed one man, the driver of a truck that ran into that train.
Senator Steve Daines and Congressman Greg Gianforte, along with other lawmakers, were on their way to a retreat in West Virginia when this crash happened. CBS's Mola Lengi takes us to the scene for the latest tonight.
The chartered Amtrak train carrying Republican lawmakers to their policy retreat in West Virginia Wednesday collided with a garbage truck on the tracks shortly before noon.
All of a sudden, we heard obviously a loud crash and felt an impact.
Witnesses say it appeared the train had pushed the truck for a few hundred yards. Members of Congress with medical training sprang into action, along with first responders.
Those of us who could, that had a medical background, dived off the train as quickly as we could and ran to these people.
Congressman Roger Marshall of Kansas performed CPR on one of the truck's passengers, but he could not be revived.
We did CPR for minutes and minutes, and eventually the EMS got there. We tried shocking this person a couple of times.
Federal investigators plan to work with Amtrak officials and local law enforcement to try to determine what happened here.
Conditions we look for include vision impairment, potentially impairing medical conditions, impairment by alcohol or other drugs, or possibly fatigue.
Hours after the accident, lawmakers boarded buses to the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia, where the retreat went on as planned.
We thank God today because we know it could have been much worse.
Vice President Pence addressed those in attendance late Wednesday night. President Trump is expected to deliver remarks at the event Thursday. Mola Lengi, CBS News, Crozet, Virginia.
No one on board the train was seriously hurt, but Amtrak says 2 crew members and 3 passengers did have minor injuries.
State emergency managers have a change of heart. They say they're now going to appeal that federal decision to deny the state millions of dollars in aid to help with the fire season last year. Leaders initially said they wouldn't ask FEMA to reconsider the ruling, that the fire season didn't meet the requirements of a major disaster. But they decided to narrow their request, focusing on 20 days in September when weather conditions were the most severe and when many of those fires started or expanded. They're also asking for just under $15 million instead of the original $44 million. Leaders of Montana Disaster and Emergency Services say the changes should bring the state's request closer in line with the weather-related disasters FEMA usually deals with. They expect it to be at least a month before they hear back. If they get the money, it would be used to replenish Montana's fire funds. Recent investigations at 3 different Montana schools have revealed suspected inappropriate relationships between students and teachers. That includes a Ronan 6th grade English teacher who also worked as an assistant school's basketball coach, who was investigated and resigned before that was wrapped up.
The most serious allegations of teachers will be sent to the State Board of Public Education to investigate. This board oversees teacher certification and can consider the suspension or revocation of teacher certificates. MTN's Lindsay Ford spoke to the board about the process of investigating cases like these.
The State Board of Public Education can discipline a teacher for a number of reasons, ranging from incompetency and gross neglect to conviction of certain types of crimes and immoral conduct.
Student-teacher relationship is, whether they've reached the age of legal consent or not, is still a problem.
Board Executive Director Pete Donovan says when it comes to cases of immoral conduct investigated annually,
it really varies a lot. I mean, there are some years that we have 1 or 2 cases, and there's other years where we can have 6 or 8.
Montana administrative rules say immoral conduct can mirror many state criminal statutes, but it can also be any sexual conduct or intercourse involving a minor or a person the applicant or licensee knows, reasonably should know, or should have known is a student at a public or private elementary or secondary school.
Sexual assault, sexual intercourse without consent, indecent exposure, deviant sexual conduct, offenses involving prostitution, endangering the welfare of children.
When one of the types of these cases are forwarded to the board, Assistant Attorney General Robert Stutz is contacted. It's Stutz's job to review the case, including information collected by the Office of Public Instruction and the school district where the teacher worked. If the board proceeds with the investigation, a hearing will be scheduled before the board and Superintendent of Public Instruction to consider disciplinary action.
In addition to the hearing before the board, the Superintendent of Public Instruction also has the authority to suspend a teacher's license immediately if there's a concern about public health and safety.
At the hearing, a teacher can bring in witnesses to defend themselves and have an attorney represent them. Following the hearing, the board can choose to issue a letter of reprimand, suspend, or revoke the teacher's certificate.
That's why we rely on what's defined in statute and in the board's rule.
An accused teacher can also choose to voluntarily forfeit their teaching certificate. If the board chooses to discipline a teacher or the teacher forfeits their license voluntarily, that information is submitted to a national database other districts can access, should the teacher apply at another district.
It's very unfortunate when these things do happen, but I think it's important to remember that it's such a tiny percentage of educators that get involved in these kind of problems, but when it does happen, it really has a profound impact on so many people.
Lindsay Ford, MTN News, Helena.
Up next, Russ is back with more unsettled weather in the forecast.
And did you catch the super blue blood moon last night? We'll have some incredible images next of this rare lunar trifecta. Stay with us here on KPAX.